Hey guys, hey everybody, how's everyone doing? Welcome to Sixers Alert episode 3. I'm here with the legend, Marc Farzetta. How you doing?
Legend, jeez. All right, fine. Let's keep it going, man. Please, by all means. I appreciate that introduction. Thank you, Mitch.
Yeah, appreciate you coming on, man. I've been a huge supporter of yours, same with my dad for like a while now. So it's an honor you coming on. So.
This is episode 3?
Yep.
You're just getting this thing underway?
Uh-huh. Just a podcast.
Fantastic. Okay, fantastic. Well, congrats on the previous 2 episodes. Let's make this one the best one.
All right, I will. So, before we start about the Sixers, tell me about yourself and how you got to be where you're at.
I went to Temple University. Well, I guess I should start in the very beginning. I was 11 years old. And I think when you're like 11, 12, 13, you're kind of looking around and seeing that the other kids on the team are a lot better than you at sports. So I kind of realized around that age I wasn't going to be playing center field for the Phillies like I might have dreamed about one day, or I wasn't going to grow to be 6'8" or 7 foot tall and be able to play for the Sixers one day. So I was just like, you know what, if I can't, be an athlete, I at least want to be around, these games that I love. And I just fell in love with the sports talk concept, sports talk radio, obviously being huge, especially in the early 90s when I was a little kid. It was something that I absolutely had to do. So I went to Temple University, started doing some broadcasts at Temple, some sports talk shows. Then from there, got a job at WIP, basically won a job at WIP through their intern contest, which was run like Donald Trump's show, Apprentice, back in the day. And did that and won the job as a promotions assistant. And then being someone that graduated and had a degree in broadcasting, I kept on telling the people, Tom Lee was the program director at the time, hey, I can produce, I can do updates, I can host shows. And I kept on applying myself, kept working, kept showing up. And eventually, my career started taking off a little bit. So I started hosting some shows at WIP. Was working over at NBC Sports Philadelphia as well, hosting a show for them. And then I got hired after NBC, or while I was at NBC, I got hired over at The Fanatic to do their morning show for a few years. And yeah, now I get to enjoy the luxuries of the independent podcast and digital age that we get to enjoy now.
Yep. I listen to you almost every morning. When I'm about to get ready for work, I have you on, love your knowledge about sports and everything. So
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, and you can't talk to everybody about the Sixers on the internet. You just can't. You can't. Like, people are telling me that, Mitch, signing back Paul Reed was the worst thing ever. I mean, like I get DMs. So, with that being said, how do you like Paul Reed getting matched?
Well, let's talk about it from a player perspective first. The question you asked was, do I like being matched? Yes, I like the offer sheet being matched 23. I love it. From a basketball standpoint, Paul Reed's a good backup center. Bottom line, let's forget all the nostalgia. Let's say that Paul Reed was playing for, the Nets or somewhere else. They have signed a good backup center, a guy that will be here for likely, with the terms of the contract, 3 years here in Philadelphia. I like that. I also like it for what I thought Nick Nurse was going to do. I thought when Nick Nurse came here to Philadelphia, and he hasn't even coached the game yet, but when I listened to his introductory press conference and he talked about the load management of Kawhi Leonard and talked about how that was a great experience, being able to manage the workload of a player like that, he could only be referring to one particular player, and that's obviously Joel Embiid. So my hunch, my gut reaction when Nick Nurse was taking over was that Joel Embiid's workload is going to be managed significantly more so than it has been in any recent year, really over the last 3 years where they've kind of unleashed the beast that is Joel Embiid and sort of taken the handcuffs off and said, go out there and go play. No more restraints. So now the Sixers went and they signed Mo Bamba. The Sixers brought back Montrezl Harrell. And now they have signed Paul Reed again. This only leads me to believe that they are going to be needing a stable of centers to make sure that Joel Embiid gets through the regular season healthy and can get into the postseason as close to fresh as humanly possible. So for all those reasons and more, and also I was reading an article recently about the contract of Paul Reed and how the Sixers, it could hinder them from making future acquisitions. if $7 to $8 million is going to be eating up a lot of your salary cap, then we got bigger problems on our hands. If Paul Reed is the final straw that breaks the camel's back or whatever you want to say, then we got bigger problems. So for every reason you could possibly imagine, I love the idea of bringing Paul Reed back. I love the deal that he's on, and I think it's a very good deal that Daryl Morey signed him to, offer sheet or not.
Yeah. Now, for me, the Paul Reed, he's going to be the solidified number 2. Mo Bamba is going to be the 3. So is Montrezl Harrell going to be involved in like a signing trade, you think? Part of like a James Harden type of thing?
If they go into the regular season with 4 centers, it's because they're going to have a good stable. I doubt that they go into the regular season with 4 centers. You'll still have 2 good backups, whether that be Montrezl Harrell or whether that be Mo Bamba. The thing is with Harrell is that you have guys like PJ Tucker, you have guys like Patrick Beverley, and you have guys that aren't afraid to go down and get rebounds for you. Not that Beverley is going to be your power forward by any means, but you're going to have guys like that aren't afraid to play with a little bit of an edge. You're going to have guys like that aren't afraid to go down there and get rebounds and play physical. So Harrell's a guy where you're talking about a stable of centers. He could go in, he can play that PJ Tucker role. He could obviously go in there and he could play that Paul Reed backup center role. He could do that with a little bit of versatility. Bamba is going to be a little bit of a work in progress. He is going to be in a similar situation, and it's weird to say this about a guy that was such a high draft pick, but you have a guy that's going to be taking on a very similar role to Paul Reed from a couple years ago. We are investing in him as a young player, hoping that he ultimately reaches a very high ceiling that he once had for himself. And I know he said some great things about Joel Embiid being a mentor to him already before he even joined the Sixers. And he's a guy that really wants to reach that potential that a lot of people thought he had when he was originally drafted. But when it comes to the 4 centers, the 4 horsemen, if you will, I wouldn't be surprised at all if the Sixers ended up making one more deal. And not for anything huge, not for anything significant, but it wouldn't surprise me if they did end up going in the direction of maybe bringing in another small forward, someone to help back up a guy like Tobias Harris before anything else.
Yeah. It's just crazy. Montrezl Harrell looked defeated last year when he was shut down by Doc Rivers. And once that happens, it's like, oh, you're done. Doc Rivers plays all the old guys except for you. You're done.
Yeah, well, Doc ain't here no more. The nurse is here, my friend.
Yeah, speaking of Nick Nurse in this offense, how do you like it in this defense? How do you like Nick Nurse?
It's funny. When I talk to people that I really respect, and I respect their basketball opinions, they all talk about Nick Nurse as a defensive-minded coach.
Yeah.
And he has been, more or less, but I don't think he gets enough credit for his offense. And the other thing you got to keep in mind, if they do go into the regular season with 4 centers, it's going to be because you're going to be running the ball around a lot, and there's going to be a lot of ball movement, and it's not going to be stagnant. I don't think we're going to see too many things or too many games where we're watching Tobias Harris just stand there in the corner, hoping he gets the ball at some point. I don't think we're going to be seeing a lot of that. I think you're going to see a lot of movement, and I think that type of movement, coupled with the idea that I think Joel Embiid, look, I know everyone's going to jump to Nikola Jokic when I say this, but I'm not comparing the two. But I do think Joel Embiid is going to have a little bit more a facilitator to his game than we have ever seen before. Yeah. I think you could be seeing a guy that's going to be averaging around 7 assists, 8 assists maybe a game. I don't think he's going to be a triple-double threat every single night, but I think he'll be around that point. I think we're going to see runs where he is having good numbers with assists. And I think that's going to be because you're going to see some more backdoor cuts. You're going to see him get the ball at the top of the key or the ball at the elbow and look for the guy that's cutting, streaking baseline, trying to get the easy dunk or trying to get the easy layup, trying to get the easy 2. That's what I think you're going to eventually see with Joel Embiid under Nick Nurse and what he wants to do with this offense. I also think if you see James Harden, in fact, return and not get traded before the start of the season, I think you're going to see some great fluidity, especially in half-court sets, that we haven't really seen at any recent point. Maybe you got to go back to Jimmy Butler when he was running things with the Sixers, especially in that series against Nick Nurse and the Toronto Raptors, where you didn't see Ben Simmons bringing the ball up a lot. You saw Jimmy Butler take over the responsibility of point guard. I think you're going to see a similar offense to that, but with more movement, more motion, more backdoor cuts, and having Joel Embiid at times more of a focal point to play that role of facilitator, because this whole season, this 82-game season ahead of the 76ers right now, more so than ever, is going to feel more like preseason basketball than anything. It's going to feel a little bit better than summer league basketball, because what you're going to be watching here is the ramp up to the postseason. And whether or not Joel Embiid's going to be healthy, sure. Joel Embiid's going to be fresh, absolutely. And whether or not the Sixers can survive playing half-court dominant basketball as opposed to being able to capitalize on transition the way they do throughout the entire regular season, where they're able to beat up on the lower tier teams and they're able to still stack 50 wins together. The 50 wins thing for me, yes, it'd be nice. And this team, if they do end up running it back with the talent they had last year and running it back now with a new head coach and Nick Nurse, then yes, this team should be able to fall asleep and get 50 wins still. But that's not what matters. What matters is their success in the playoffs. And the 82-game season is simply going to be a ramp up to see whether or not they're ready to win and play winning basketball in the playoffs, not just the regular season.
Yeah. And don't forget about the mid-season tournament.
Oh, God.
And what are your thoughts on that actually?
I got to see it, but my knee-jerk reaction to it is it's the dumbest thing the NBA could do. Like, what is this, a glorified all-star week? Like, what are we doing? So you're going to be a mid-season champion. Do we hold a parade if our team wins the mid-season championship? What exactly happens in the mid-season championship? Do players get mid-season championship bonuses? I know they get more money for just being in the tournament and winning the tournament. But, like, will it be worked into their contracts even more, or will it be just something that's completely extracurricular to their contract stipulations? It's simply, like, when I heard Woj talk about it, Adrian Wojnarowski, and they were asking about the benefits of it, the first thing he went to was the financial aspect of it. Well, from a financial perspective, it's great for the league. Yeah, no kidding. You're going to be having a party in Vegas. Yeah, go have fun. But from a basketball fan perspective, it's the definition of putting the cart before the horse.
Yeah.
That's not how it goes.
No.
You don't have a mid-season championship. Like, look, the pitch clock. Let's think about some things in sports that we've looked at, okay? The pitch clock. People saw that and went, that's going to be stupid. And now it's here, and it's like, oh, this is pretty cool. Designated hitter in the National League. I know a lot of people have been screaming for a long time. Me, I now consider myself a non-practicing baseball traditionalist. The DH is now in the National League, and I'm like, yeah, it's long overdue. All right, I'm fine with it, right? And then you talk about putting a runner on second base in baseball, and we're going in to do this in extra innings, and I'm like, oh, this is stupid. And now I'm like, well, I kind of like it. I can't see. So I've turned around on all those things I used to oppose in baseball. I can't think of a positive that comes out of a mid-season tournament in the NBA other than Adam Silver and owners, and yes, the players will make money too, other than those guys that already make a lot of money making more money. And I don't get the appeal. Look, probably a closer example, playoff expansion.
Yep.
That we go through in every sport. I don't like playoff expansion. Mitch, the playoffs are supposed to be, the players are supposed to mean something. If you make the playoffs, I mean, oh, well, you know, they were a playoff team, so they weren't that bad. Well, now it's like in every sport, it's like 40% of the teams make the playoffs. 50% of the teams make the playoffs. And it's like, well, so you're not as terrible as only half the league? That's not that special. That's like an A. You could get a D, but still get an A. Like, how does that work? Like, what? So for me, I don't like it, but of course, if the Sixers win because they're in the play-in tournament and then they make it into the actual postseason, then that's cool. I'm still watching, but I don't understand. Like, am I supposed, if Joel Embiid is having a nagging knee injury, am I supposed to root for him to, oh, I really hope he can play in the mid-season tournament. I really hope Joel Embiid is healthy enough to play in the mid-season tournament. It's so unbelievably dumb. I don't see the benefit. As a matter of fact, I only see the detriment. Like, are players going to be pushed to do this if they're not 100%? Am I going to have Joel Embiid? I'm worried about Joel Embiid being healthy enough to make it through one postseason, one playoff, one tournament. Now I got to worry about being healthy for two? Yeah, no thanks. I'm out. It's stupid. It's a money grab by the league.
It's before the All-Star break, too.
Yeah, let's have back-to-back All-Star week. That's essentially what it is. It's essentially what it is. It's a glorified All-Star week where everybody is going to be taking part. Yeah. It's just stupid. Absolutely stupid.
The whole groups, the Group A, Group B, Group 1, Group 2.
Yeah, because you know what? You know how Americans love the World Cup. Yeah, that's what they love so much.
Yeah. Oh my.
Group play. Stupid. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. No, it's all good. It's all good because I agree with everything you said. When I was watching it, I'm like, is this really happening? Because I know the WNBA has their own midseason tournament, but they get points. So I'm like, what do you get here in the NBA?
Right. Is that what they get in the WNBA?
No, the WNBA is like points that adds to their season.
Oh, all right. Yeah. So what are the NBA guys getting? Nothing. They're getting money, right?
Money and a trophy.
Cool.
It's just like, for me, it's just like insane. So back to the Sixers.
So dumb.
It is. But back to the Sixers and Tobias Harris, right? The whole thing with the crumble cookie, his dad calling him an assassin scorer. How do you feel about that?
I mean, I would hope my dad. See, but here's the thing. I know when people talk about dads, they always try to talk about their own fathers and everything. I thought about with my own dad. My dad would be like, "You're not an assassin scorer." Like he would, like my dad would be so honest, like in right between. Nothing would be sugar coated. But yeah, it's his dad. I think most dads are gonna look at their boy and say, "Oh, look at him. He's great. He's awesome. An assassin scorer." Fine, but his dad's also his agent, right? So like, what are you? He's gonna say encouraging things, and that's fine. But as far as the Tobias Harris thing, I am a big Tobias Harris fan.
Oh,
Tobias Harris, yeah, I know. I'm the one. Tobias Harris is is Tobias Harris going to take reps away from James Harden? No. Is Tobias Harris going to take reps away from Joel Embiid? No. Is Tobias Harris in today's league going to take reps away from a guard like Tyrese Maxey, who is on the upswing of his career? No. So Tobias Harris is the fourth man in. What NBA player as a fourth man in is just dominant, is worth every penny? Nobody. Not a soul. So I don't look at him here in Philadelphia and say he's a complete bust. I think, yes, it's 1,000% accurate to say he's a very overpaid role player. Yep. Fine. But that doesn't change anything. If he's going to be here for the remainder of the year, to the remainder of the offseason, then the Sixers have to continue to find a way to make it work. And by the way, I do think he's going to be here. I don't think he ends up getting traded. I think the Sixers are going to run it back with the same starting five that we saw walk off the court last year. Yeah. But as far as Tobias Harris goes, I am really curious to see what he does in Nick Nurse's offense. And when we were talking about it before, about what you could do offensively, look, everything that Tobias Harris said when he was making the casual fans comment, he was right. You don't find many 6'8" guys that can shoot from three and play defense and still cut to the lane. There's not that many guys out there that can do that. What he does here is very much limited because of what's around him. Yeah. But you don't find many guys throughout the league like that. The only thing that, if he doesn't say anything about the casual fans, if he simply says, look, I know that what I provide is a rare skill set at my size, and he doesn't say anything about who wants him traded or doesn't try to bring that aspect of the casual fan into it, then we're probably not even really talking about what he had to say that much, because it's just a player telling you that he feels he's good enough to hang and good enough to play. So I like Tobias Harris. I think he plays his role really well. For the money, I wish that his role was a little bigger, but where does he have room to grow with Harden, Embiid already so established, and also Tyrese Maxey continuing to take up more space as he continues to improve and grow in his career?
Now, I think Tobias Harris might get traded during a trade deadline. That's why I think his value would stock up, expiring contract. You agree with that? Him getting traded at the deadline?
I don't think the Sixers are going to make a significant move at the deadline. I think if Tobias Harris gets traded, it's going to be along the same lines as that Jimmy Butler trade when he was traded for in, November?
Yeah.
So one of the things the Sixers, I think, want to avoid is another deadline reset. Trading for a guy like James Harden is a deadline reset. Trading for even Tobias Harris and Boban Marjanovic, if you remember, that trade happening was, let's see, you had the starting five that you started the season with. Then you had the Jimmy Butler starting five. Then you had the Tobias Harris starting five. So you had like 3 different versions of that team going into the playoffs. It takes some time for these teams to figure it out. It takes some time for these guys to understand how to play together. So if they come out of the gate and they're playing great in the first month of the season, first month or 2 of the season, then maybe Tobias Harris sticks around. Maybe you don't trade Tobias Harris. Maybe you think, oh, this is the time to hold on to him because now we're just hitting our stride. But if they don't come out of the gate fast, this might be the most important first month of the season for the Sixers since 2000, 2001, when they won 10 games in a row to start out the year, and then they eventually went to the NBA championship. But when you watch this team, I think what you're going to be watching and looking for the most is how Tobias Harris fits in, if he is really helping this team win. And if he's not really helping this team win, then I think you could see a move well before the deadline to give this team enough time to grow, build chemistry, understand one another, get implemented into whatever Nick Nurse wants to do with his offense and defense. That's where I think the big deal happens, months before the deadline. I think a move will be made at the deadline. I don't know what that move is going to be made. We'll have to see if the first move actually happens. But I don't think they wait for the big roster changing move till the NBA trade deadline. I think they wait about maybe 2 months into the season to really see what they have.
Yeah. I mean, to go back to the 2000-2001, they traded Theo Ratliff to get Dikembe Mutombo.
Yeah.
To try to compete with Shaq, and look what happened there.
Well, that's actually, it's a good example for why you can make a trade at the deadline and still make it to the NBA Finals. But that team was so special and so rare that it was so defined. It was Allen Iverson scores, everybody else play defense. Allen Iverson scores, everybody. So you literally were able to, as much as I love Theo Ratliff, you were able to get a guy like Dikembe Mutombo, the Defensive Player of the Year, to come in and just play defense. He didn't have to worry about anything offensively speaking. The offense was, hey, Allen, go run a play. Defense, that's where Larry Brown was making all the right moves, pushing all the right buttons, and that team fell in. So it was a little easier to do some cut and paste jobs with that team than it would be for a James Harden, Joel Embiid, and obviously Tyrese Maxey and Tobias Harris team.
Yeah. Now, you were talking about not a big trade happening. So with James Harden, I don't think he's going to get traded at all.
Yeah.
I honestly think he's going to stay here, put on a fat suit, and do that again. That's what I feel like with James Harden's going to happen.
You feel like he's going to be a distraction?
Yeah.
See, I don't think he does that with Daryl Morey. And I don't think he does that with Joel Embiid. If there's any saving grace to the idea of a great relationship between him and Daryl Morey, I think it's that you're not going to have him act all crazy and act out of sorts like he did in Houston. Or even though I think you could really look at the situation in Brooklyn and say a lot of that was on Kyrie, I don't think he's going to force his way out of Philadelphia the way he forced his way out of Brooklyn or Houston. And the main reason for that is Daryl Morey. After that, I think it's also Joel Embiid. I think what the Sixers have done between Nick Nurse, Joel Embiid, and Patrick Beverley, they have rolled out this red carpet. And I was saying this this morning on the show. They have rolled out this red carpet for James Harden to say, you can say you want to be traded. You can opt into your deal and say you want to be traded. But why'd you opt into the deal to begin with? Why did you do that? You couldn't sign a longer-term deal for more guaranteed money anywhere else if you were a free agent? Because I think you could. So why opt in? It's not because he just wants a big guaranteed $35.5 million. 38 was it $35.8 million in his back pocket?
Yeah.
I think it's I think there's somewhat of a willingness to, if something hits the fan, he can come back here and still know he's going to make some good money in the upcoming season.
Yeah.
He's going to have a chance to win here in Philadelphia. He would have a chance to win if he got traded to the Clippers, who really want him apparently, but they're not willing to give up a lot for him. So maybe they figure that out later.
Cool.
But I think when it comes to James Harden, I think he does come back here to Philadelphia. I don't think he acts a fool. I think Joel Embiid, Nick Nurse, and Patrick Beverley literally looked at the camera yesterday and said, I love you, James. Please come back, James. I came here for you, James.
Yeah.
And one thing that I think has been taken, not necessarily out of context, but one thing that's been read the wrong way, I think, is the comment from Nick Nurse when Howard Eskin pushed him at his introductory press conference about James Harden. And he said, do you want James Harden back? And he said, James Harden's a great player. He's one of the best players in the league, blah, blah, blah. And then he was pushed and said, well, that doesn't answer the question. Do you want him back? He's like, if he comes back, I'm very happy. Now, some people took that as, do you want James Harden back, yes or no? And then you start dancing around the question. Oh, that means you don't want him back. That means you don't want to say something nasty about a player that might still end up being back. I don't think it was that necessarily. I think it was about the negotiation game and the negotiation game and the gamesmanship.
Yep.
If I say I really want him back, but he doesn't want to be back, then I look like a fool. But if I say I'm just going to be happy if he's back, then that leaves it open for everybody. Yep. So I don't think people read that the right way. I understand how it looked, but if you really think about it, Nick Nurse, if he says, absolutely, James Harden, we'll try to convince him to come back. If he doesn't come back, then that means you've already lost your first battle as a head coach. Yeah. So I didn't take it as negative as some people did. I think that was Nick Nurse just trying to keep his options open and also trying to give a little bit of gamesmanship in his introductory press conference.
Mm-hmm. Now, there's only one positive I could say about James Harden staying, and that is Maxey. Because when Maxey was on the court with Harden, the playmaking was there.
Yeah.
Harden led the league in assists. So Maxey provided from that. He excelled from that. Maxey needs to work on his view of the court, playmaking, and all that. But with Harden there, that's where Maxey excelled.
Yeah, I like Maxey 1,000 times more as a shooting guard than I like him as a point guard. And I know in today's basketball, it's like talking about safeties in football. You don't have a free safety anymore. You don't have a strong safety anymore. You just have a safety, right? You have two safeties. I think in today's day and age in the NBA, that's a shame because I do like more of a defined role. But if you're looking for the skill set, I think Tyrese Maxey is a perfect example of a great guy to have as a shooting guard. If he can develop that court vision and he can learn that from James Harden, then, yeah, maybe you have a legit combo guard for the next 10 years in the NBA. But right now on this team, I think he is best suited as a shooting guard. And you talk about things you want him to improve upon. I like Tyrese Maxey. I know the minute you start talking about things you want him to improve upon, people are like, well, why do you hate Tyrese Maxey? And I'm like, no. I love Tyrese Maxey.
I get that too.
Yeah, did you say one day, if he just improves upon this, well, he's great already. Well, no, we're talking about, if you're Tyrese Maxey, you're looking in the mirror right now and saying, hey, you're really great at everything. Don't bother improving anymore. No, of course not. If you're Tyrese Maxey, you're looking in the mirror and you go, okay, what do I need to get better? Okay, facilitating. If called upon to be more of a point guard, I need to be a better facilitator. Make sure I'm putting my players in the best possible position and finding them in spots where I know they can have success. Then the other thing is, what are you going to do to advance your game? Because everyone wants to talk about Nikola Jokic and Joel Embiid potentially becoming that much more of a facilitator and, trying to take a little bit of that part of Joker's game and putting that in his game. That's great. What about Jamal Murray? What about Tyrese Maxey trying to learn a little bit more of the pull-up jumper, trying to finish more at the rim? What about that? Because Tyrese Maxey still has a lot of room to grow. If Tyrese Maxey can improve on his three-point shooting, and his three-point shooting jumped already, takes a little bit more of a notch forward. He's already he's a very good three-point shooter. Improves a little bit more in that game with more consistency and also just do it more often. Not be afraid to pull up from three more than he has already. Knock down his mid-range games a little bit more. Create that spacing a little bit more. Again, finish around the rim more. If he can improve on those assets of his game, or those aspects of his game, fadeaway jumpers, just keep on adding to the arsenal. Like one of the things you love about the great players, whether it's Kobe or Jordan or anybody, they're always looking, oh, okay, I can hit threes. Now let me try jumpers. Oh, I can hit jumpers. Let me try fadeaway jumpers. Oh, I can hit fadeaway jumpers now. Let me practice my, stutter step and get by guys. They're always looking for something else to improve upon, something else to add to keep defenders guessing. Yep. And put it this way. I said the same thing about Jalen Hurts a year ago. I'm going to say the same thing about Tyrese Maxey. I don't bet against anybody that already has a pretty damn good amount of talent, like Jalen Hurts and Tyrese Maxey, and have an incredible work ethic. I forget the words that Jeffrey Lurie used. It was something along the lines of Jalen Hurts has a phenomenal dedication to being excellent.
Yeah.
Tyrese Maxey, I think, has that same type of gene in him. So I'm not going to bet against that guy. And if there's something he wants to improve upon in his game, I can tell you right now, 6 months after he makes the decision to improve upon that aspect of his game, that aspect of his game is going to be a great aspect of his game. He certainly got more aggressive when James Harden was here. James Harden was telling him, when James Harden first got here, telling him to attack the rim more, use his speed, use his quickness, and he did. Then you look at the step back three over the last year that he learned from James Harden. He's knocking that down. I just talked about how great a three-point shooter he is. He does that because James Harden got here. He learned from James Harden. Now that's a part of Tyrese Maxey's game as well. The ceiling is limitless for this guy. I can't wait to watch the rest of his career.
Yeah, I can't either. And you were talking about developing more of your game, right? I don't want Maxey to become like another Ben Simmons. Look at him now.
Oh, that's not going to happen. That is not at all a concern.
It's not a concern for me. It's just like, I want him to keep doing what he's doing. And to all those people who DM me, he was like, he's fine what he does. He's fine. I'm like, always want to improve your game. You want to improve on life.
I don't understand the fine people. Who are the fine people? Like, did Jordan look at his game and just go, oh, I'm fine? Did like Kobe look at his game and oh, I'm fine? Did Nikola Jokic in Serbia go, oh, I'm fine here. This is fine. No, you keep on pushing. Jalen Hurts was at Alabama. And then he go, oh, I'm fine. He was like, no, I'm still not getting what I want. I'm going to Oklahoma. Next thing you know, he's a runner-up for the MVP, and he's in the Super Bowl. Yeah. I'm fine. The people that say he's fine or it's fine, just continue to sit at the kids' table because that you're not having the same conversation that we're having here at the adults' table.
No, not at all. It's crazy how people just like, they think they have everything to work on, right? The players, but there's always room to improve. Always. There's always room to improve. So, speaking of improving, how about the Sixers bench? I mean, look at the bench here. We only got Beverly, Mountain, Korkmaz, who I don't even understand. Mo Bamba. We got Montrezl Harrell, and that's it.
Yeah. Well, it's basically like
it's
basically Beverly, Korkmaz, and then it's just like Melton, and then it's all centers. It's just a bunch of centers.
Yeah, Daniel House too.
Daniel House. Yeah.
I like Daniel House.
Yeah.
McDaniel's leaving.
Yeah. Patrick Beverly and PJ Tucker I find really interesting.
Yeah.
Because I feel like they're the same people at different positions. One the guard, more of the other forward, obviously. Supposed to be a power forward.
He plays center.
Yeah, plays center. I don't know how to put this exactly, but those are two big alpha males.
Yeah.
Those are two guys that really, really want to win. And I've joked about it plenty on my show about how, like, you know, they'll be yelling at each other over, I want to win more. No, I want to win more. No, I want to win more. And it'll go like that. But it's like, that could be dangerous.
Yeah.
Because they're both very much set in their ways. They both have the common goal. Both want to get to point C. One might go the A route. One might go the B route. And you could argue over how you get there exactly. Is that going to be a good thing with Joel Embiid and James Harden already? Is that going to be a good influence on Tyrese Maxey? I know everyone's like, well, they're guys that just want to win. Well, I know, and yeah, that's great. But sometimes too much of a good thing can be a bad thing, especially if they're two guys that don't hold on. So I'm curious to see how that matches. And look, I know some people that just comes off as me looking for a negative in a positive, but I'm just trying to be wary of two alpha males that have their own idea of doing something. I'm curious to see how that works out.
But here's the thing with PJ Tucker. Like, he didn't do that much during the season. It was more during the playoffs. I feel like Beverly would do that more during the season.
I feel like Beverly would do that after game 3 of the season at halftime. Like just where PJ Tucker's been like, look, man, I've won a ring already. Like, this is how you do it. And Patrick Beverly's like, well, we didn't play the first 24 minutes well enough damn it, guys. Like, Patrick Beverley came out saying, I showed Chicago how to win. Well, Chicago really didn't win much. But, hey, good for you, man.
I mean, when we got Beverly, I felt like that was a really good signing because he's a true definition of Philly. Like the whole toughness, he'll get in your face, trash talk. I thought that was
I love it.
But he's a little older. He's on the older side.
Yeah. don't get me wrong, I love Patrick Beverley. I'm just very curious to see how Patrick Beverley and PJ Tucker coexist. So, hey, look, we're talking about having these, 3 backup centers, okay?
Yeah.
Kyle Neubeck, who writes for The Athletic, used an interesting word when he was examining both sides of the argument to bring Paul Reed back or not bring Paul Reed back. And one of the things he said about not bringing him back is that carrying 4 centers on an NBA roster seems, quote, irresponsible. All right. So that makes you believe that one of these guys could get traded.
Yeah.
So with PJ Tucker still making a lot of money, is he going to be thrown into another deal as a sweetener? And Patrick Beverley is the guy that stays here as that alpha male that is going to be pushing everybody to the max. So it's one of those things that crept into my mind.
Yeah. For PJ Tucker, though, it's like he's on. How old is he? Like 37?
37 or 30. He's going to be 38, I think, when the season starts.
What, like 38? Who's going to want a 38-year-old guy?
Nobody, except somebody that wants to match the money.
Who's going to match? Oh, my God.
If he's thrown in as a sweetener with a guy like Tyrese Maxey?
Can you imagine if we traded Maxey, the whole city would be up in flames?
See, if you're trading Maxey for Dame Lillard, I think people get over it really quick, and then they bring that anger back in like 2 or 3 years. But I think if you get Dame, people will be over that rather quick.
I mean, hey, if we're getting Dame and it's a sure 100%, we're getting past the second round, maybe Eastern Conference Finals, I'll do it. If we get bounced out, I'm like, okay, we lost.
Oh. If they get Dame Lillard and they get bounced out in the second round again and you've lost Tyrese Maxey and then everything hits the fan, Joel wants to be out, Dame doesn't like it here, Harden's gone already, everyone. This city would... I believe just eat itself. We would like implode or whatever. It would be insane if they got Dame, traded Maxey, and then Maxey goes on to become a Dame Lillard type player.
Yeah.
Woo, baby. If you get Dame, you better be right in making that move. You better be right.
Yeah. I mean, would you want like a Zach LaVine? Because those rumors are starting to kick up into steam now.
Yeah, I've had my eye on Zach LaVine. Look, who hasn't really? But in terms of a good fit with the Sixers, I would absolutely love to have his game here in Philadelphia. Obviously, it's not going to cost you that a Dame Lillard would, but I just think Zach LaVine would come here in Philadelphia and he would flourish. I think he'd be a great fit in this city. I think he'd be a great fit with Nick Nurse. Good shooter that can move around a lot, has a good basketball IQ. I'm very curious to see what Zach LaVine could do here in Philadelphia. So if you don't have the bigger names, like a Dame Lillard out, maybe you go in the direction of a Zach LaVine. Still a big name, but not necessarily somebody that could be a MVP candidate in the very, very, very near future. So I'm very curious to see how Daryl Morey continues to handle this offseason and the first 2 months of the regular season. But here's what I do know. We know that Daryl Morey is all about playing the long game.
Yeah.
It's all about his patience is one of his best virtues. Joe Cronin, the general manager of the Portland Trail Blazers, came out yesterday and talked about how if this takes months with Dame Lillard, it takes months. This isn't something that's happening tomorrow. They're ultimately going to make the best deal for the franchise that they could possibly make. Now, that best deal could still be a pretty crappy deal in the grand scheme of things if they only are able to trade him to the Heat and they can't get anything of value back. Like, you're going to trade him for Tyler Hero? That doesn't sound great, but Bradley Beal, I think, is a perfect example of how a team trading a big piece does not necessarily get a big piece in return.
No.
So that's a worrisome. The NBA is difficult in this regard, where players can really force their hand and really limit the team that's trading them in terms of what they get back. And Dame Lillard has been patient in Portland. He's been very patient with that organization. And now he's at a point where it's like, yeah, I don't care what you guys get back. This is where I want to go. You owe me this.
Yep.
And we'll see if the Blazers actually conform where most teams do, in fact, conform, which is letting their star go to where they want to go.
I mean, look at Bradley Beal. I feel like Washington actually won that trade. Look who they got now, right? You got Jordan Poole, you got Tyus Jones, and now you got Kuzma, a young big three.
Yeah, remains to be seen. But I think you could have gotten more back.
They finally restarted. Restarted after all this time. So for me, I'm just like, about time for Washington.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's just get right into, is there like any other dream free agents you want to see that it's available?
Not with the money that the Sixers are going to have available. Free agency is not going to be a thing. I was saying going into the offseason that the biggest offseason acquisition the Sixers were going to make was going to be via trade or just signing a head coach. So Nick Nurse, I still think remains the champion there. He is the biggest acquisition the Sixers will make via any type of free agency for a coach, whether that be Mike Budenholzer or whether that be Nick Nurse. He's the number one guy. He's the guy I wanted. That's the guy the Sixers got. As far as everything else, Patrick Beverley, great acquisition. Very happy to see that. Surprised to see Mo Bamba here. Surprised that Montrezl Harrell is back. Not surprised that Paul Reed is back. But I don't think there's anybody else out there really that's raising a lot of eyebrows in terms of people that will have a big impact on this team if they are added. And then the other part of it is you don't even know what your starting five necessarily is going to be at this point. Maybe you do. Maybe my hunch is right. Maybe many other people's hunches are right, and that you are going to have the same starting five as you did last year, at least to start the season. But until that really looks like it's crystal clear, like that is cemented, like you need a story coming out about James Harden loving it in Philadelphia, and he's decided he doesn't want to be traded. He wants to run it back with Joel Embiid, and he wants to see what Patrick Beverley can bring to the table here, and he wants to see another step forward in Tyrese Maxey, and he wants to play for Nick Nurse. He's more than intrigued now with Nick Nurse. He wants to act on whatever Nick Nurse is doing as an offensive coordinator type of head coach. He wants to see what he can do there. If that's the case, then let's have at it. Let's give it a shot. But as of right now, I think this entire offseason is going to be from this point on, my prediction is that this offseason is very underwhelming. And I don't think we'll see any major moves, acquisitions, or even little roster pieces here and there talked about until we get closer to the season, or really a month into the season. That's when we'll start talking about pieces. Maybe Jaden Springer is going to be a guy that really helps you in your rotation. Maybe Jaden Springer is the guy that comes in here and he really helps you out as far as what he could do for you off the bench in the upcoming year. But everybody else, I think it's going to be small potatoes.
Yeah. So you brought up Jaden Springer. I've been watching basically every Sixers Summer League game, and I love Terquavion Smith. Like with his shooting, with his everything. What's your opinion on Terquavion Smith?
Like one of the things that really jump off for me is quickness with him. Yeah. He's very comfortable. He does not look like – sometimes guys will in the summer league, what I look for in every first exposure to professional play, whether that's football, baseball, whatever. Look like you belong. There's no moment for him that looks like it's too big. He looks very comfortable in his own skin. The ball never looks like a hot potato. Like I can even remember with Paul Reed, that ball would get in his hands and he'd be like, how do I get rid of this? And you don't see that with Smith. You see a guy play very relaxed basketball. He plays very much within himself. You hear great things about him and Nick Nurse getting along very well in the early goings of this, how he's just there to learn. He's just there to understand. He's there to get his feet wet. I think you're going to see a guy that's going to take time in the G League to really get his feet under him and get more comfortable. But he's going to be a project. But I will say this, watching him in Summer League to this point, he looks like a guy that's just very comfortable, a guy that is not going to step out of his comfort zone just yet. He'll step out of his comfort zone in the gym during practice, then wait to implement that. I think he's going to go about everything in the right way. But what jumps out to me is quickness and comfortability, and those are two things that are a great starting point for a young talent.
Yeah, and now with Philippe Petrusev getting all that hype, how do you feel about him? From like the last game, he showed a little bit of athleticism, a couple blocks, a fast break to a layup and one. So,
Yeah.
give me your opinion on Philippe Kusev.
I don't know what his rights dictate. I don't know if it's a chance that he goes back to Europe and then he goes to the G League eventually, or if he's going to go right to the G League or whatever it could be. But yes, a lot of the same things I said about Smith, but you could tell that there's a little bit more of there's no question I belong here. Like I'm very used to being a pro already. I have that type of comfort in my game where I can shoot from the outside a little bit. I could get down low and hustle a rebound here and there. I could do the odds and ends things that, yes, statistically show up in the box score, but they're not grabbing headlines left and right. Smith is a guy that I see as a future headline grabber. But so far, looking at this situation, I'm looking at him as a guy right now that's going to come in and just continue to establish himself as even more of a pro. It'll be a minute before the NBA, I think, is a real thing for him. But as of right now, I think he's doing exactly what he should be doing. He's turning some heads in the summer league. He's getting attention, and he's building momentum for himself. That's about as far as I can go with him right now.
Yeah, I just don't see I don't see all the hype in Petrusev. I do not. I mean, this is my first time actually watching him. Like, he did play last year in the summer league. I did not really pay attention to that. So for me, it's just like it is what it is with Petrusev. Yeah.
Yeah, so, I don't have my hopes up right now. That's the thing. Like with summer league, I know a lot of people get into it, and I'm into it. Don't get me wrong. I mean, you kind of have to be, but yeah. I'll see headlines being grabbed about really whoever Council, right? Because that great dunk, and it was a great dunk. He exploded, but people were acting like it was 90 Jordan in the dunk contest. It was like, dude, this is summer league. Guys are just learning the ropes. For some of them, it's their first professional run of things now. They're just getting their feet wet. I try not to get excited about anything.
Yeah, I've actually been excited for Ricky Council and Louis King. King has been catching my eye lately. You like Louis King and Ricky Council?
Well, here's the deal with Council. Council, to me, let's say that he is. Let's fish a wish here and say he doesn't just play in the G League. He does play for the Sixers a substantial amount. But a substantial amount for a guy that's a two-way contract guy. He's going to be in the G League. He's going to be at the professional level. Let's fish a wish and say he plays more than Jaden Springer does. All right, in his first year under this two-way deal. Let me explain that. More than Jaden Springer did in his first year as a professional. Let's say he plays more than that at the NBA level. That'll mean to me that the Sixers have a guy who they haven't really had since Andre Iguodala in terms of a guy that will be much more suited in that role that is an explosive player. Like, the Sixers haven't had too many guys that can run the fast break like he can and explode and finish it off with a athletic dunk like he has. He does have that capability. He could do that in an NBA game tomorrow, but it's everything else that needs to fill in around it for him in order to enjoy that type of success at the NBA level. I think he's a phenomenal athlete. I think he's got a great knack for finishing around the rim. I think he explodes towards the basket. All the instincts are there with him. But I think, again, those are all things that are going to have to be refined in the G League when it starts up.
Yeah. Yeah, and Louis King?
Louis King is a little bit of an enigma for me. I want to see what he's got as far as developing that outside shot a little bit more. Obviously, like a lot of these guys, great history of scoring. But I worry about him with the pull-up jumper. I worry about him with hitting threes consistently at the NBA level. And I also worry about the overall toughness factor. Not mental toughness, but physical toughness. I think mentally he's very tough. When it comes to the physical attributes, I want to see that kind of fill itself out a little bit as his professional career goes on. Again, this is all a feet wet type of scenario. But these are all guys that are kids that are going to grow, and he's certainly one of them.
Yeah. I mean, we have a bright future. Now that Nick Nurse playing all the young talents now, I cannot wait to see a lineup like Embiid, Paul Reed, Jaden Springer, all those guys in the lineup. I cannot wait to see that.
Yeah, well, you might have to have some patience for that because
I know. I'm excited because
look, Yeah, look, Doc Rivers was one of the guys that everyone talked about like how he actually coaches up young players really well, and then he's terrified to actually test them.
Yeah.
Nick Nurse ran his starters and veterans into the ground last year in Toronto.
Yep.
Apparently, a lot of the starters and more veteran players didn't like a lot of the young guys anyway, so maybe that was them fighting for their own battle as opposed to letting the younger guys play. Nick Nurse, it's going to be interesting. It's a totally different scenario for him. It's only his second head coaching job. And I know a lot of people will look past that because he had success in Toronto. But I think you really got to concentrate on player development, especially when you're cash strapped at the moment. You have to develop the talent you have right now, because next year there might not be that much of an option. It really depends on how this year shakes out. So you might have to rely on guys like Jaden Springer. You might have to rely on Ricky Council the fourth. You got to make sure that these guys are really taking it to the next level for you, because you might not have a lot of money to be doling out there in free agency in the coming years.
Yeah. So we're actually coming to a close here. I know you got to go and do your thing. So what is the one word that describes the Sixers offseason for you? For me, it's predictable.
Wow, you would use the word predictable?
Yeah, sort of. Because I kind of knew where they were going with this. Montrezl Harrell caught me off guard. I knew they were gonna get something with like a backup center, like a Mo Bamba type. I knew that. I knew McDaniel could probably be gone.
Yeah.
I knew like a bunch of these guys would be gone. Shake Milton, Niang. I knew they would be gone, so it's kind of predictable for me.
Tease.
Okay.
The word I would use to describe the Sixers offseason, it's been a tease.
Yeah.
Harden's not back. Harden is back. Harden is back, and he's going to be traded, and the Sixers are going to get something for him, and now he might not be traded. Tobias Harris is going to be traded. Not going to be traded. Tyrese Maxey is going to be traded for Dame Lillard. Dame Lillard not going to be traded.
No.
It's all one big tease. Nick Nurse comes out and doesn't originally address the question about whether or not he wants James Harden back, but I think he actually wants James Harden back. Joel Embiid's rolling out the red carpet for James Harden to return, but does James Harden really want to be back? Patrick Beverley, where the hell did he come from? Okay, fine, we'll take Patrick Beverley. He's telling James Harden how much he loves him. I think James Harden's going to be back, and I think all this is going to be a bunch of talk. The thing that we haven't talked about enough, and this is another tease, is why didn't the 76ers extend Tyrese Maxey? Is it because of the money? And if he's not on a long-term deal and he's in an expiring deal, quote unquote, it makes him more tradable. So for all the things that we have been really teased about so far this offseason, the one tangible thing is, what have the Sixers done? Well, they brought in Patrick Beverley. Cool. They brought in Nick Nurse. Great. They haven't extended Tyrese Maxey. Why haven't they done that yet? Brian Windhorst used the term attractive. Tyrese Maxey is now a lot more attractive because he's not on that extended deal. He's growing to be more attractive than Tyler Hero, especially in a trade where maybe the Sixers enter into the fray with Dame Lillard. And I think Tyrese Maxey is obviously a big part of that trade if it is to go through. But one thing we do learn, even with James Harden, a lot of these stars, they have the lists of teams they want to go to. Apparently for James Harden, 3 years ago, the list included the 76ers number 1 and the Brooklyn Nets at number 2. If the Sixers can somehow get into the number 1, number 2, number 3 fray in a Dame Lillard attractiveness race, then maybe he comes here to Philadelphia and maybe they do end up parting ways with Tyrese Maxey. But like I said, like Dave said, this is playing the long game from both angles here. But the fact of the matter is, Tyrese Maxey not being extended makes him a lot more attractive in a trade.
Yeah, tell everyone in the city of Philly that.
I just did. Everyone in the Philly's watching your show.
That is true. That is true. So I appreciate you coming on, man. It's a huge honor. I've been listening to you for years, and
very nice. Thank you.
People know where they can find you out on social media.
Social media, yes. You can watch me on the Farzy Show on the YouTube channel, Farzy Show YouTube. You guys can catch me on Jacob Media, Phillies post game and Eagles pregame when I do that. You guys can catch me across all social media platforms at the Farzy Show. So make sure you guys check me out there. And I do the show live 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. every day, Monday through Friday. So make sure you guys check me out there. And also subscribe to the podcast as well. And we'll have ourselves all sorts of good times.
All right. You heard it here first, guys. Make sure you like and subscribe. Appreciate everyone for tuning in. And yeah, guys, we'll catch y'all later. Have a good one. See you guys.